get started to see which one can be the most retarded. Tinfoil haters, it's time to start the show. Tinfoil haters, it's time to start the show. Tinfoil haters, don't tell them what to say. Tinfoil haters are here to save the day. To get started to see which one can be the most retarded. Tinfoil haters, it's time to start the show. Tinfoil haters, it's time to start the show.
Welcome back to another episode of Tinfoil Haters. How are all you vital idols doing? Oh, we got a good one for today. We got a good one. I, said last week this is something I was unaware of. This is a case I hadn't heard of. And I promptly realized once researching it that I'm fucking retarded, and I actually haven't heard of this. It's been a minute. So, the research for this was super simple, or at least as simple as a conspiracy theory-oriented show can be, when we have no fucking idea what's happening with the world. But we are still in Russia, so that's cool. Got a bit of a theme going, but I can't do this alone. Obviously, I got my partner in crime, Sammy 3Pete. Tell the people who you are and what you do.
I'm Sammy 3Pete. Thanks for having me on for another episode of Siberia Month. This is this is a cool one. I'm a Detroit based musician, but I also have a YouTube channel, and I'm on Rumble, and we're selling coffee now on Rumble. So please try my flavor for each one of the horsemen for Lights Camera Citation. Got to pick a flavor, and my flavor is driving while dark roast. So
I like that, driving while dark roast. See, I feel like for you though, coffee is sort of antithetical. It better be a decaf, because not considering how often you fall asleep on streams, coffee ain't doing his fucking job.
No, it would actually make it worse.
Oh wow.
Speaking of making things worse, Cinevere, tell me who you are and what you do.
Hey guys, I'm Cinevere. I like to talk about anime, gaming, and on the occasion a little bit of horror. So I always look forward to my Tuesdays, and I hope you guys do too.
You love to see it. Well, again, we also can't do this without you vital fucking idols. We got Valiant Goat up in this bitch. Krovax is here. That Darno Taku, what is up? Gal Carrimon. We got Cliff 420. Amanda Tree 57. Johnny is up in this bitch. We got Zach Fox. What's up, Zach? Eagle Lord is here. Shout out. Thallow Greenskin, the Hats of Paradise. You'd love to see it. We got Dax, not our best mod in the whole damn land. The true Aztec Warrior. Soul Assassin is here. Over on Kick, we got the Bots, baby. Mage Wolf coming in with a bingo, bango, bongo. How you doing, you absolute fucking legend? Nobody Has Spoken is here. The Stream Elements bot is doing its job. And Jason Lowry. But we also have something else. A little bit of a special guest here today. The one that suggested this topic, probably arguably the biggest supporter of the show, is now making his Tinfoil Haters debut. Jake motherfucking Martin, tell people who you are and what you do.
It's me, Jake, from the chat. What's up, haters?
What is up? How you doing? This particular episode, the Dyatlov Pass incident, was your idea. So, first of all, tell us what about this one?
Well, I wasn't really prepared to intro it, but that's okay, man. I got like a little thing I wrote up here just because I thought this might happen.
Look at that. My man's coming prepared. Might replace Sammy with Jake.
Oh, my man. I got notes after notes, and ChatGPT only helped a little bit. So here we go.
When doing all my research, I was like, hey, ChatGPT, here's all the sources I have,
Right.
all the information. Let's talk about it. So, yeah.
Right.
It's become how I do the research for this. Shout
I
out
think that's
to Wolf. How you doing? Go on, bud.
that's a healthy approach. So here we go. In the winter of 1959, 9 skilled hikers led by Igor Dyatlov set out into the northern Urals to conquer the slopes of Mount Ororton. They were young, highly trained, and deeply familiar with the unforgiving Russian winter. Yet they never reached their destination. What began as a high-altitude expedition ended as one of the 20th century's most enduring forensic puzzles on the ridge of the Kholat Shikal, a place the local Mansi people aptly call Dead Mountain, which is a really cool book if y'all ever had the time.
But
yeah, what basically happened when searchers finally reached the site weeks later, they found a scene that seemed to defy the logic of survival. A tent slashed open from the inside stood solitary against the wind, while the hikers' footprints led away in an orderly, barefoot file toward the tree line. The subsequent discovery of the group revealed a haunting spectrum of tragedy. Some had succumbed to the quiet pull of hypothermia, while others bore the marks of violent, invisible pressure, shattered ribs and fractured skulls with no external bruises to explain the impact. Last paragraph. The Soviet authorities ultimately closed the file, attributing the deaths to an unknown compelling force. It is a phrase that explains nothing and everything at once. Tonight, we're stepping back into those frozen slopes to look at the evidence, the theories, and the human stories behind the Dyatlov Pass incident, seeking to understand what could have driven 9 experienced hikers out of their sanctuary and into the heart of a Siberian blizzard.
so basically, this is Russian Star Wars, because in Soviet Russia, force compels you.
Yes, it was a compelling force.
But yeah, I mean that is an excellent description of this. Basically, you hit the nail on the head. 9 hikers go in, 0 come out, and the Russian authorities say, I don't know, man, fucking nature is what it boils down to. But there's a lot of really weird, sort of, it's more of a conspiracy theory. It's not just one single conspiracy theory, I guess the best way to put it, because we have next to no answers as to what caused this. We have a lot of theories, but no actual answers. People have been able to run wild with this, especially because there are so many anomalies. Sammy, were you able to do any research on this today? Did you come away with anything?
Yeah, so basically, when I first heard about this, I thought this was like the Russian version of the Donner Party, and I couldn't have been more wrong. So yeah, no, I mean, you guys got the gist of it, but I mean, there's so many other paradoxes that go into it. I mean, but there's things that you can relate to, like hypothermia, but there's also things that you can relate to, like animal attacks, and like Jake said, it is to my understanding just a paradox of what do you call it, forensic just gone haywire, because there's so many things that kind of add up for one theory, and then there'll be another thing that just throws a wrench right into it. It's actually really interesting. It's actually really interesting. I wish I had more time to read about it. Like I'm gonna read more about it when I'm done, even after the show's over, because like I didn't realize that it went this deep.
Yeah.
And the reason it goes so deep is because it's just a rabbit hole within rabbit hole within rabbit hole, since there are no answers. Jake, were you about to say something? And
well, I was just saying, it made me think. I read a phrase earlier, and it stuck with me, and they described this as a Goldilocks conspiracy, or like a Goldilocks paradox, because it's like there's just enough forensic evidence to make it a compelling story, and yet none of that forensic evidence gives you any kind of good, conclusive answers as to what the fuck went down.
Yeah.
So like, it's just something that like you really can't get to. I mean, I came up with 5 kind of central theories that I narrowed it down to. I mean, we could discuss whatever, but like those don't even begin to cover like all the different theories that people have come up with this. And there's been decades and decades that have gone by for people to come up with shit.
And not for nothing, I said this last week. It takes place in Russia, which is inherently like mysterious and interesting to Americans. You know what I mean? It was like there's always been that mystique.
Yeah, you guys
like,
shirtless dudes that wrestle bears and shit in Russia. Like,
yes,
The Russian people, enigmatic.
That being said, yeah, thank you for highlighting this chat, Cindy. So Matt Stanford says they had a bad batch of vodka. Actually, that is one of the shout out. Thanks for the sub. Somebody, let's see, the Jackals of Tarag. There we go. The Jackals of Tarag. Appreciate the sub, homie. Anyway, so you say they had a bad batch of vodka. This is something that I want to make exponentially clear out the gate. So when Jake opened this with these were experienced hikers, not only were they experienced hikers, but this hike, if done successfully, this expedition would have given them a grade 3 hiking license, which at the time in Russia was the highest ranking credential hiker you could be. These were all very seasoned hikers. And so you bring up the vodka, they actually left not only all alcohol, they did not bring any sort of alcohol because that could have impaired them on their hike. Remember, this is 1959. They didn't even bring cigarettes. They foregone their cigarettes. Now, cigarettes, y'all know the 50s, they were like a dog, dude. They were man's best fucking friend. So that's how dedicated these guys were. No alcohol, no cigarettes. They just in it for the hike.
Hey, that's how you know something fucking spooky happened.
Right, exactly.
I bet they were wishing for that alcohol.
We got our boy Zax, member for 12 months. It was the juice. Mystery solved.
It.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of my 5 theories, man.
Well, thanks for coming out, guys. We'll see you next week.
So before we get into your theories, let's go ahead and look at some of the articles that were written about this, because the investigation actually was reopened. This as of 2019.
Oh, really?
So Dyatlov Pass cold case reportedly reopened by Russian police, who say 9 skiers died in natural phenomena. Now, they weren't skiers, they were hikers. I mean, maybe they skied as well, but Russian police have reopened a 60-year-old investigation into the mysterious deaths of 9 students and a cross-country ski trip, in the case of which baffled authorities and sparked conspiracy theories for decades. Known as the Dyatlov Pass incident, the mystery includes a sliced-open tent, bodies dressed in underwear in the snow, traces of radiation, and victim missing a tongue. The deaths have been blamed on everything from avalanches to UFOs, but the Russian prosecutor's general's office now hopes to put any far-flung theories to rest. In an announcement last week, marking the anniversary of the deaths, the official representative of Russia's prosecutor, Alex Kurenoy, said that it was not a criminal investigation. He acknowledged it was a baffling mystery. All the deaths are somehow connected with natural phenomena, he said. Now, here's the thing. This was in 2019, and as I so aptly mentioned before, this case is unsolved. So 6 years later, sure, maybe they reopened it. We ain't no shit. Like this.
So what caused them? I'm sorry, I may have missed it, but what caused them to decide to reopen the case?
It seems just like pressure from the public, because this is it was such a. Jake, would you say this was a shoddily done investigation when it did happen?
Well, back in the day when it did happen, it was still happening under the Soviets, and they barely got the investigation started, actually, and the Soviets shut that shit down, which is one of the reasons why we've ended up with so many conspiracy theories now. They just started the investigation out in the wilderness, got a few things together, and then eventually it just got weird enough to where they were like, okay, no one saw anything. It was a compelling force, and that's just got to be good enough for everybody.
Compelling
and typical Russian bullshit.
Phrase. Real quick, the Jackals of Terra Argentum putting the first $10 into the Alex Jones was right jar. Shout out.
Well done.
Said maybe the nicotine plus alcohol withdrawal caused them to go ballistic and off each other. Nah, more seriously, I always thought it was some kind of unknown animal. There are theories for that. Very interesting you bring that up, because Jake said he's got several theories we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about a lot of them. Before we talk about any of them, we got to give you a clip, you absolute legend. This is for the Tin Banger. Thank you oh so very much. Appreciate the 10 banger, homie. $10 in the Alex Jones was right, Jari. Absolute legend. Fat Roller says, didn't they try to call it an avalanche? It's funny. We'll get to that. There may be some truth to that. Emphasis on some. And then, so we've got this right here. Study sheds new light on Russia's Dyatlov Pass mountain mystery. The mysterious deaths of 9 young hikers in 1959 has spawned countless theories, from aliens to a botched nuclear test. Now, we're not going to read all of this because a lot of it just sums up everything that we talked about in the intro, but new research published Thursday in the journal Communications, Earth, and Environment had added weight to a natural explanation for the deaths of the experienced mountaineers whose frozen bodies were found scattered across the snowy landscape, some with terrible injuries. Now let's stop right there. Let's go back to again Jake's sort of opening here, and let's talk a little bit about these injuries, because guys, they're fucking weird. Jake, take it away. What's so weird about these injuries?
Well, in one of the cases here, I kind of have some biographies on these people. You'll have like crushing injuries, but there will be no external bruising. So like they'll have internal injuries, really severe, extremely, some kind of horrible trauma inflicted on this person, and yet like there's nothing external to suggest that they were injured. So like you wouldn't know unless you examine them.
And to be frank about what sort of injuries these were, one dude had his a brain or a skull like internal contusion. Basically, he has skull fracture. Other people had full like compressed ribs. But it was all internal. There was no bruising or anything on the outside. There was a woman whose tongue was missing, a guy whose eyes were missing. That could be linked to decomposition because those bodies weren't found until later. Because of the 9 hikers, only 5 were found with the initial rescue attempt. The other 4 weren't found until much, much later.
Yeah, the other 4 were like they were buried under snow, which maybe had is part of the avalanche theory, I guess, or like could have accumulated in the interim between when the event happened and when they were discovered, or until like the snow had melted, I guess.
Well, the ones that were found in the snow, if what I read was correct, their bodies were found in basically a like handcrafted snow shelter. Like because when you get to like freezing temperatures and sub-zero temperatures and whatnot, the best way to keep warm is actually to dig down into the snow and create like a giant crevice for you to crawl into, because the snow will always be just right at freezing level, 32 degrees Fahrenheit for us Americans, we use Fahrenheit because freedom. So you'll actually be warmer in the snow than you would be above out exposed in the elements. So they were in some sort of just handcrafted snow base basically, but who knows if they got stuck in there or whether.
Yeah. Well, and apparently, and this kind of dovetails with the avalanche thing, or what they were calling. There's a certain name for what happened. It's not an avalanche necessarily. It is let me see here, a slab avalanche, but we can go into that later. Supposedly they had dug over top of a. I'm sorry about it.
Do you want to start, because the slab avalanche, that is the most compelling theory in terms of what likely happened for some of this. The thing is, it doesn't answer all the questions.
No, it really, like once you start taking it apart, it really doesn't account for a hell of a lot.
Right. So let's go ahead and let's start with the slab avalanche.
Can I ask a question?
Oh yeah, go for it, Kenny.
How can you tell if a snow fort has been taken apart or slashed and broken from the inside?
That's an excellent question, Cindy. I really don't know. There's not a great explanation for why it was destroyed from the inside out. I mean, go ahead, guys.
So, well, one of the theories, first of all, as far as how you can tell if it was slashed from the inside or the outside, I imagine you could, like with forensics, you can see where the point of entry for the blade came in, and so if the blade pierced from the inside out, there'll be indentations, there'll be breakage or whatnot that show the force went outward as opposed to inward. So, and the theory, one of the theories as to why they cut the tent, which to me has never made sense, but this is the prevailing theory, is that they were using it as protection for their camera tripod. Why they would use their own tent for protection.
Right.
Camera tripod makes no sense, but that's one of the prevailing theories. But yeah,
the only shelter. Yeah,
well, so not their only shelter. That's sort of. let's talk about the slab avalanche. That will actually lead into their other potential shelter, and we'll talk about that. So,
So the premise for the slab avalanche, it's basically, okay, that's a heavy slab of snow loosened when the hikers cut into the slope to pitch their tent, which would have had to have been like a mistake that they didn't realize they were making, which should be very unlikely for such experienced hikers in this region of the Urals to make. Like, they would have recognized what they were doing and been like, we obviously can't pitch a tent here. We can't cut into this hillside.
Yeah, for those that want an explanation on how a slab avalanche works. So let's say you've got, it only takes a 20-degree angle for this to happen. And now the tent was pitched at a 23-degree angle. Basically, they had found a more or less flat area, and they needed to sort of chip away at the snow around the flat area to find places to pitch their tent. Well, when chipping away at where to put at the snowbank area at the 23-degree angle to pitch their tent, it basically loosened the snow enough that over the course of several hours, the weight started piling on to where just a small slab of snow, small in comparison to an entire mountain, obviously large enough to encase these people in their tent and everything, but small in comparison, loosened enough that several hours later, it then just slid with extreme force right over their encampment.
Yeah, and like even a relatively small amount of snow, like in a scenario like that, it's extraordinarily heavy and like could absolutely cause catastrophic car crash style injuries to a person. But
it becomes, would it only allow for internal trauma as opposed to external?
Yeah, that really doesn't make sense. Yeah, and besides that, it's more common for those kind of slab avalanches to occur at I guess like a 30-degree incline or better. The example that you usually see people give to demonstrate that effect is like they'll stack one book on top of another, and you begin, leaning the bottom book, and eventually the top book will start to slide off. The same thing will happen with the snow.
Yep, that's actually the exact example I saw when I was doing the research on this.
Yeah.
So, and then the idea is that when this happened, they cut their way out of the tent, forsaking all of their gear for some reason, some of them even being in like the footprints, which a lot of which were wiped away by, wind and whatnot, but several of them were still there. Many of the footprints showed them either going barefoot or just wearing their socks. They didn't even put their, by the way, to put this in American units, it was about negative 22 degrees out. Like, why would these motherfuckers not be wearing their shoes?
Yeah, even in the safety of their tent, like, there's no way they were in there, like, almost naked.
It really does sound like they suffered, like, some kind of psychosis.
Well, that's also part of the theory is that, so paradoxical stripping is something that happens when you get hypothermia. Paradoxical stripping is when the hypothermia sets into a certain degree, you instead start feeling incredibly hot. It's a freezing heat. And so they start stripping off their clothes to, in effort to think this will cool them off. Really, it just exacerbates the hypothermia further because they've got less protection. But the footprints and whatnot indicate that they had stripped their clothes off and everything was gone already. They left the tent in this condition. So, I mean, that to me doesn't make any sense. Hypothermia, paradoxical stripping would happen after they leave the tent. They're exposed to the elements and whatnot, and then they start taking their clothes off. But many of them's clothes were already off. That's incredibly strange.
They were having an orgy and someone left the flap open.
That's one of Jake's theories as well.
Orgy foul.
So they did actually have a second camp of supplies in the woods, down from where their initial camp was set up. So another one of the theories is that they, after leaving the tent for whatever reason, we don't know. Again, prevailing theory is the slab avalanche. But after leaving that tent, they're making their way down back to their secondary set of supplies, which sure makes sense in some regard, but it still doesn't answer why they left with the minimal provisions they had, especially in the middle of the night in negative 22-degree weather. Again, these are seasoned hikers. Why would they not be bringing there as much as they could carry, at least in terms of provisions, clothing, boots, things of that effect.
Yeah. And like the weather at that point was extreme, like the most extreme kind of outdoor rugged wilderness blizzard you're going to get anywhere on the planet was happening right there.
So carry on where you think the theory goes from here, because you said you had several theories. Where do you think it goes from here from the slab avalanche?
Well, like you were saying, they like retreat to the tree line supposedly because they have like a secondary stash of supplies. Here's the thing about evacuating the tent. Like if there really was this emergency like that and they were blindsided and hit with this slab avalanche and they have to cut their way out of the tent, they did not escape and like run frantically in a panic to the tree line. They form an orderly line and single file walk to the tree line, which doesn't seem like behavior congruent with an emergency.
No, if anything, this would happen in the Middle East because sand people walk single file to hide their numbers.
They have to hide their numbers.
But yeah, no, a single file cordial walk down slope. I mean,
yeah,
if
they were just on a Sunday stroll.
Yeah, well, if you're frantic enough to feel the need to cut your tent open, you would think you would begin, running. And to be fair, maybe they're just experienced enough hikers. They were able to maintain calm under pressure. But even so, that doesn't, account for all the other weird decisions they made.
I kept thinking about that dude from The Sopranos. If you guys have ever seen that, they like take this Russian guy out in the wilderness to make him dig his own grave. He's like cursing at them in Russian. And I mean, the guy's like in his pajamas, and he's like, "You think this is cold? I wash my balls in ice water."
No, actually, I do want to watch it. Michael Franzese, a mobster YouTuber I've been watching, really recommends it. But anyway, so from here, so is that your finish up on the avalanche, the slab avalanche theory?
Okay, I was just going to add to it that they start digging the underground shelter. Supposedly, after having the misfortune of the slab avalanche, they begin digging the underground shelter, which happened to be over a running stream that was under the snow. It doesn't freeze because it just keeps running. And that was what caused the 4 that were discovered later.
Her body was found.
Exactly.
Wasn't there some coal wood heater device in the tent with them? One of the climbers, one of the climbers was an engineer. That's correct.
Dyatlov himself was like an accomplished electrical engineer and like a radio technician.
As far as the coal or wood heater, I didn't see anything on that, but that doesn't mean it's not true. Do you know anything about that, Jake or Sammy, in your research? Because Cindy would know. She goes in these blind to be surprised.
Well, Dyatlov actually, he built the custom stove and some custom radio equipment that they had used on previous treks, and they had it with them during this incident.
Okay, gotcha. Well, that answers that. So it certainly wasn't, cold in the tent, I would imagine, if they had their own coal/wood heater device.
No, it was like a salvaged World War II heater. So like it was used during wartime conditions. Even so, it doesn't really account for like why everyone's in there stripped down to their skivvies and like then, rushing out into the snow afterward.
Well,
and in case anybody
like
wants, sorry, go for it, Sammy.
I do like that theory about the they were taking that shelter and they hit running water because 4 bodies were found in a creek.
Yeah, and conceivably it could happen.
Yeah.
Well, we have this right here for anybody who wants to put a face to these hikers. So you got Igor Dyatlov, which is the leader of the expedition, Alexander Kolevatov, Lomnimela Dubinina, Nikolai Thibault-Briangles, Yuri Yudin, Rustam Slobdin, Semen Zolotarov, Yuri Doroshinkt, Zenaida Kolomogrova, and Yuri Krivonishenko. Guys, I don't speak Russian, but yeah,
easy for you to say.
That perished. And again, only 5 of them were found during the initial expedition. So Jake, what is theory number 2 for you? Assuming slab avalanche.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much the gist of the slab avalanche thing. And then after that, you have the theory that was posed. It's like probably the most seminal work about the incident. This book, Dead Mountain. It's the infrasound theory. which is basically these rare von Karman vortex streets, which are wind patterns caused by the mountain shape, generated low frequency sound waves, and those sound waves generated a terror, like a fear-induced psychosis in these people, panic characterized by nausea, dizziness, and an overwhelming sense of impending doom. And that's basically what caused them to slash their way out of the tent and flee into the cold.
See, and I've heard the same theory, but also I've never actually heard anything compelling as to like what could have emitted this sound wave.
Yeah, I mean, they're saying it's just a natural phenomenon generated by the winds. I guess like because of the how like steep the mountains are, the gravity of the area plays a big effect on like these winds picking up speed to the point where they generate these, like, it's not even something you can really hear. It's so low, it's below your normal auditory range. And it can have these effects on a person supposedly. Now, like, none of that shit is conclusive. The wind phenomenon is real. And also, I guess like there is such a thing as like a sonic induced panic. But I mean, did any of that happen? Were the conditions perfect for it to take place? Like, yeah.
Never mind. Go on, Jake.
I'm sorry, man.
No, I said I myself prefer a knuckles-induced panic, but that's just me. But go on.
You're stupid.
I didn't know what you said, so I just assumed that you made a brown noise joke.
No.
Well,
that was pretty much it, man. Just like that's called the infrasound-induced terror, which is the biggest theory that they put forward in that book, Dead Mountain, about the Dyatlov Pass incident. I don't think it really holds water. I mean, I think it sounds like such a tenuous kind of theory because, like, first of all, there's no way to prove it conclusively. And secondly, even if you could, there's no way to prove that that's what happened to these people.
Yeah, the idea that, because again, the human brain, it's different things affect different people. I get that this is a known phenomenon, something that does exist, but the idea that it would affect all 9 members and they act in relatively the same way. Look, I'm no expert on the subject, but that does seem a little strange to me.
Yeah, I'm not either, man. It's like, even in the realm of far-fetched, that it seems like there's way more plausible shit that could have happened.
Now let's go ahead and read about the investigation here real quick. A legal inquest had been started immediately after finding the first 5 bodies. A medical examination found no injuries, which might have led to their deaths. It was concluded they had all died of hypothermia. Now, I want y'all to remember that because we're going to talk about the hypothermia angle because it doesn't add up. One person had a small crack in his skull, but it was not thought to be a fatal wound. Now, the crack in his skull, yes, it would be a fatal wound. It would not be immediately fatal. You could survive about 1 to 3 hours with the sort of crack he had in his skull, and you slip into a delirium and in and out of consciousness. So,
oh wow,
that is a little bit incorrect here. An examination of the 4 bodies, which were found in May, changed the picture. 3 of them had fatal injuries. The body of Thibaut Brignol had a major skull damage. Both Dubinia and Zoltarev had major chest fractures. The force required to cause such damage would have been extremely high, with one expert comparing it to the force of a car crash. Notably, the bodies had no external wounds, as if they were crippled by a high level of pressure. One woman was found to be missing her tongue. There had initially been some speculation that the indigenous Mansi people may have attacked and murdered the group, but hit some speculation for encroaching upon their lands. But investigation indicated that the nature of their deaths did not support the thesis. The hikers' footprints alone were visible, and they showed no sign of hand-to-hand struggle. Not only that, so the reason there was this theory that the indigenous people had potentially sacrificed these folks, or because about 1,200 meters away, a Mansi sacrificial sigil had been found, basically, and that's actually more likely that it was used like for a moose or some other game in the area. There's no indication they actually do human sacrifice. It was just, hey, they happen to have a sacrificial, what's it called? Like piece of
totem.
Totem,
like an altar.
totem. Not too far from where the campsite was, but like that was their only frame of reference for the Mansi people being involved. There was evidence that the team was forced to leave the camp during the night as they were sleeping, though the temperature was very low, around negative 25 to 30 degrees Celsius, with some storm blowing. The dead were dressed only partially and certainly inadequately for the conditions. Some of them had only one shoe. Others had no shoes, wore only socks. Some were found wrapped in snips of ripped clothes, which seemed to be cut from those who were already dead. That was... if I recall, and Jake, maybe you can back me up on this. The ones that were wearing clothes of the folk that were already dead were the ones that were found months later under that creek bed.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, perfect. Want to make sure I have my information correct on that. Journalists reporting on the available parts of the inquest files claim it states 6 of the group members died of hypothermia, 3 of fatal injuries. There were no indications of other people nearby apart from the 9 travelers of Kohot Sakil, nor anyone in the surrounding area. The tent had been ripped from within. The victims had died 6 to 8 hours after their last meal. Traces from the camp showed that all group members, including those who were found injured, left the camp of their own accord by foot. One doctor investigating the case suggests the fatal injuries to 3 bodies could not have been caused by another human being, owing it to the extreme force which had been subjected. Forensic radiation tests had shown high doses of radioactive contamination on the clothes for a few victims. Final verdict was that the group members all died because of an unknown compelling force, which I mentioned earlier. The inquest ceased officially May 1959 due to absence of a guilty party. The files were sent to a secret archive. Photocopies of the case became available only in the 90s, with some parts missing. Now, this is the interesting part. So after the investigation, which was wrapped up within like 3 weeks or something, the Soviets classified this story.
Wow.
Well,
Why?
the Soviets are always big on not sharing when something goes wrong. They're notorious for that. Even if it was an accident or if it was unexplained, they, that might be looked at as a sign of weakness. They were very paranoid.
Which fair enough, but even during the filing and the records for like the doing the autopsies and whatnot, certain information was classified and was never officially declassified. Like when they were putting forth the all the evidence to come to the conclusion of this being natural causes, they intentionally left out certain photographs. There's missing pages from diary entries. We have most of these diaries and frankly even the missing pages at this point, but we have no explanation as to why they were left out of the initial investigation.
Did they have a way? I know that the chances of this going missing as well is pretty high, but like, did they have proof that there was only the 9 sets of footprints and there was no additional ones?
Yes, yeah, they conclusively, again, this is assuming you trust the USSR, conclusively came to the conclusion that there were only these 9 individuals.
No,
and
I mean,
was
there evidence for that?
Well, there's no evidence to counteract it. Is more the better answer to that.
Yes.
Okay.
That's actually one. I'm sorry, man. I was just going to say that's actually one of the reasons why, like, involvement from a third party, which is another one of the conspiracy theories, is that's one of the easiest ways to debunk that. Is apparently there are no other footprints in the area when they begin the investigation. So it's like you couldn't speculate that something came upon them or someone else was there. But again, it's like you're getting that from the Soviet files, so you got to take it with a grain of salt.
And then yes, Diz L Jiz says for radiation testing, 1 or 2 were to nuclear energy. I think yes, one of them.
Yeah,
these were all students, or were any of them professors, or were they all students?
I believe they were all students or former students at the Technical Institute.
There was one that seemed to be 10 years older than everyone else.
Yeah, he was a military veteran.
Yeah.
But yes, one of them did work in a lab at the university that did do nuclear testing. So that could explain the radiation.
One of the Yuris, he worked at this Chebalyinsk Mayak, which is like a secret plutonium plant. Like you got to have top secret clearance for. And I guess like they had some kind of Chernobyl-esque nuclear meltdown in the years prior too. So like he was kind of like a hero from that story. He was like a public figure. This was such a big deal at the time when it happened. I mean, we're talking about it now, but like this was huge news back in its day.
So that is 2 of the theories so far. But you said you got 2 more, so let's get into another one. We'll see if we get to the one that is probably the most inconclusive, but also my favorite. So what's your next theory?
Nitric acid, the toxic cloud. So the premise would be a failed R7 missile test, which is at the time, that's like an early ICBM missile test, where an ejected fuel canister from a nearby launch released melange, which is a nitric acid-based fuel, and this created a heavy glowing orange cloud that drifted over the camp. The hikers, blinded and suffocating from the caustic vapor, slashed the tent and ran toward the forest to find breathable air.
That is the worst thing to happen mid-orgy.
Yeah, that's
Great.
definitely, you don't want that. That's going to kill the mood.
I mean, it's up there.
Now you mentioned the orange smoke. Now the color orange goes to my favorite theory. We'll get to that next. Now I've not heard that full version, but what I have read. So the area that they were hiking through is in the middle of multiple different missile testing sites. They would shoot missiles, back and forth for testing. Now, this exact location wasn't actually where any of them would land or detonate or whatnot. But if one of those missiles went awry and something like that, I guess this is possible. Do you have anything to potentially debunk this, or is there anything to support it? So let's expand on this theory further, because this is the one I actually am not as familiar with.
Yeah, debunking it's actually pretty good. So the nitric acid would be highly corrosive, and there's no chemical damage to the tent fabric or the trees or to the remaining gear that they had. Also, for the autopsies on the corpses, they have no chemical burns to the skin, eyes, or throats, and the injuries that would be mandatory for victims of a concentrated acid cloud. So, like, none of them had injuries consistent with that happening, the acid cloud. And also the flight logs from that time are declassified, and they don't, I mean, again, you're talking Soviet shit, but the flight logs of that time period don't support that theory. Like, there wasn't anything going down in the area that could even happen.
Yeah, I mean, that would be very obvious, like what you said with the acid, because keep in mind, the acid would keep burning until it burnt itself out if they didn't have anything to counteract it. It wouldn't just stop burning them when they died.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess maybe that's why I've never really heard of this one, because it's so easy to debunk.
Yeah, it's weak sauce.
All right, now
Real cool though.
as far as the color orange, there are multiple reports, not of the Dyatlov 9, because, well, they fucking died, but many people, other hikers in the area, as well as the local Mani tribe, that saw glowing orange balls of light in the sky when this happened.
Oh.
Yeah.
Now,
that's my favorite theory.
Oh, good. Well, let's talk about this one then, because it's my favorite as well. Because you can go a few different routes with this. A lot of people like to take the UFO route, and maybe it is the UFO route, but there's other stuff as well. So let's go ahead and lay it on us, and we'll talk about it for a bit.
Well, I just wanted to start with, this is what supposedly shut down the investigation. This is what made the Soviet Union say, you know what, we're going to stop investigating. It was a unknown force of nature, and that's all there is to it. It's because the lead detective, this Lev...
I'm glad you brought this up, because I was going to if you didn't. Go off.
Yeah. Lev Ivanov, who was the lead investigator on this, he swore up and down that the orange spheres that were seen in the air that night by more than one party. So supposedly the hikers themselves had written about it in their journals, but other verified reports from people in that area roundabouts said that they'd seen the same phenomenon going on. There's even a picture of the supposed phenomenon that we could probably find if we needed to.
I'm actually in the process of pulling it up right now. A supposed picture of it, we should say.
Yeah, and when Ivanov was basically like, I don't know exactly how, but these orange spheres, these mysterious lights in the sky, they are directly connected with what happened to these people. And at that point, the Soviet authorities were like, we're shutting this shit down.
Let's see. Give me one moment here.
Well, there was also like other weird things too. Like they kept after the tent was found, they kept that hidden for like 2 days. They there was a bunch of weird shit that went on in the investigation here.
Yeah, definitely so. This is kind of like the lead investigator himself. That was, he had like broken a 30-year silence to come out and say like, this is why it happened. This is why they made me stop investigating. But again, it's kind of just conjecture. There's a million things wrong with this.
I could swear I had photos of these. Where did they go? Ah, right here. Okay, here we go. Now, unless you're thinking of a different photo, this is the one that I found. Now, this could be a few different things. It could obviously be where's the screen share option? Here it is. Now, it could be the orange lights. It could be, because again, this is 1959. Cameras were black and white. It could be just a smudge on the lens. Like, However, if you look at all their other photos, and we'll pull up all their other photos, they are expertly done. All the other photos are crystal clear, perfect photos. Then you've got just this one weird one with this orb and all these other, these light fragmentations around it. Is this photo you were thinking of, Jake?
Yeah, I believe so. And just from eyewitness accounts alone, even without the photos, I am sure that there was some kind of unknown phenomenon going on in the sky that night. And it's happened other nights too, but specifically when this shit went down, this was going on. Because there's too many disparate stories from people too far apart. They have no reason to lie about what happened. And yeah, they'd all seen this, this light phenomenon in the Urals, which I guess is fairly common, especially according to the Mansi people.
Yeah, and for frame of reference, like this is, another one of the photos that was taken, during the expedition. So,
is that white line like part of the photography of that era, or was there a crack? Like the last picture looked like it was a crack on the lens.
Oh, this right here, you're saying?
Yeah.
It doesn't look like artifacting to me, considering it's so much more prominent than all the rest of the artifacting, but I'm also not sure. I can't say with any certainty. So maybe someone else.
Tell us about photography. Yeah, I'm sure you guys know more about photography.
Yeah, Les's game says look like a hair or a twig, maybe. Bigfoot is smudge shape. I'm sold. Oh, it's so funny you say that, Dax. We'll get to the Yeti in a bit. But let's talk about this a little bit further. So yeah, you mentioned how the detective came out and said 30 years later, this effectively shut the investigation down. He said that in the 90s, after the fall of the Soviet Union, and none of that is referenced whatsoever in the investigation. It's as if it was removed from the investigative reports whatsoever. If you find anything from the reports that happened in 1959 when this was being investigated, it will not be mentioned at all.
It's like conspicuously absent. It's noticeably absent, which is really what's fueled the main thrust of this conspiracy theories.
Now, a lot of people jump to aliens. Another common, I don't know how common it is, but another thing that I've heard about this is ball lightning. Was the cause of these orange spheres. So I don't know how common ball lightning is. I know it's a real phenomenon. I don't know. Let's see. In fact, I guess we could just do a quick. Does ball lightning occur over Dyatlov Pass? Ball lightning, often described as mysterious fireballs or glowing orbs, is a prominent theory regarding the 1959 Dyatlov Pass incidents. Witnesses and researchers report seeing strange flying orb spheres in the area around the time, which some researchers suggest could have been atmospheric phenomena, rocket debris, or ball lightning causing panic. It doesn't really say whether it's a common thing in that area, though. But yeah, we do have many witness reports. There's also local legends. The indigenous Mansi people reportedly warned hikers about devilish fireballs in the area, a common unexplained or atmospheric phenomenon, as discussed on dyatlovpass.com. While some theories suggest lights were Soviet military rocket tests, others argue they could be natural yet rare atmospheric phenomena like ball lightning. Some researchers have suggested the unusual localized atmospheric conditions in the Urals could produce such occurrences, the Urals being the mountains they were in. All of this is heavily debated alongside more mainstream theories like slab avalanches, as reported by Volgograd State University website. So it's basically a mixed bag. We still don't have an answer. Now, as far as UFOs go, go for it, Jake.
I was just going to say specifically in the Urals, I mean, it is like kind of a watershed for the most extreme and unique weather that we get on the planet in many regards. Like things happen there that don't really happen other places. The specific name for the kind of wind patterns that come down the mountain and they're fueled by gravity, whatever the fuck they were called, cataract street winds or some shit. But these things are not as common other places. So I'm willing to suspend disbelief that there was some kind of outlandish, fantastic weather event took place that played some role in what happened, just because of where it is. And in the course of human events, maybe it went down like that. But there's no tidy solution, even, no matter what you chalk it up to, because there's always holes. One of the main things for me is the injuries, the nature of the injuries. They don't really make, ball lightning causes them to get skull fractures. And what exactly went down? it's just there's no. I wish there was like a tidy answer because I looked for one. I mean, I've looked for one before we ever did any of this, but like, I'm positive you're never going to know exactly what went down with this.
Well, and I mean, you're talking about the injuries and whatnot. Let's talk about the autopsies because the autopsies are publicly available, right? You've got, this right here. This breaks down all the autopsies. You've got the original files as well, or at least photocopies of them in case you want to read them.
Dude, because of the injuries, like it's hard to get across just how gruesome these injuries were, and just how unexplainable a lot of them are. There's other shit too we hadn't really gone into yet. Like one of the guys had, for some reason, he bit a chunk out of his own hand. They found it in his mouth.
That. Yeah. Okay, we'll get to that in just a moment.
Sure.
So here we've got discrepancies in the resolution of the case. So by author Galina Saznova. This was from, I believe this was done. This came out in the 90s. And right here, it breaks down all the inconsistencies within the autopsy. So let's just read just a couple of these, right?
Beautiful.
So May 28, 1959, prosecutor criminologist Sverdlovsk Regional Prosecutor's Office Junior Justice Counselor Ivanov, having examined the criminal case, instituted the occasion of the death 9 hikers in the Ivdel district of Sverdlovsk region. January 23rd, 1959, a group of amateur hikers in the amount of 10 people went on a ski trip in the route. By the way, it says 10 people. There were originally 10 people. One of them suffered a chronic illness, and so in the first day of the expedition, he turned back. So technically there is one survivor because he did not continue traveling with him. He had to go back.
Yeah,
so
it was one of the Yuris.
I was going to say that guy's name was also Yuri.
Like 76 years old. He died in like 2013.
I just want to call out the discrepancies so that people know that the sources that we're using are real sources. It's just if it says 10, the expedition did start with 10 people, but one dude only made it one day in before he went back.
Yeah, they decided they couldn't have 3 Yuris.
Right. Ski trip along the route of the city of Sverdlovsk, city of Evandel, and northern district Mount Otorten. The group considered of Igor Dyatlov, a student of the Ural Polytechnic Institute, leader of the expedition. It just gives their names. All the participants of the expedition had good hiking training, could participate in a Trek 3 category of difficulty. The group was supplied with necessary equipment, food, and trade union committee of Ural Polytechnic Institute financed expedition. Arriving safely to the place at the beginning of the trek, the second northern Evandels district, the group started on the hike. Yudin turned away, returned home from the site at the north as he could not continue to trek due to illness. We had all their dietary entries. And then let's see, where did the in one of the cameras, the last frame shows the moment of evacuation, snow for installation of the tent. Considering this frame was shot with the exposure of 125th of a second with a diaphragm of 5.6 of the film sensitivity, 65 UN. This language I don't understand. Taking into account this frame, we can assume the hiker started the installation of the tent around 5 p.m. Similar picture was taken with another camera. At this time, no records, no photos were shown or were found. Location availability in terms of the tent, almost all shoes, clothing, personal belongings, and diaries indicate the tent was abandoned suddenly as hikers at the same time, and it was established the subsequent forensic expertise. The lee side of the tent where hikers usually lay their heads was cut from inside the 2 places, providing a free exit of the person through these cuts. And then, let's see, where was physical and technical examination established Lavsky's clothes, especially Dubina's clothes, significantly contaminated with radioactive dust. The tatters from Kirsvashenko's trousers were wrapped in Dubina's leg, gives 9,900 half-lives per minute of 150 square centimeters. So there's all the radiation. Let's see, where did it go? Multiple external lesions found in the body. I had one that by this same gal that showed a lot of the inconsistencies in the autopsy where they were like, I'll try and find it, but basically what would happen is the investigators just vaguely wrote off hypothermia for all these individuals without any explanation of any of the physical damage to their body. They're just like, oh, died of hypothermia. Despite the fact that there's multiple other things to draw from.
Yeah, well, I just to kind of build on that, they're saying that in the official report that Dyatlov himself, he died of hypothermia, but he also had, like, there was evidence of chemical and radiation exposure on Dyatlov. Like, portions of his skin had like turned orange, and that was, I guess, indicative of some kind of chemical or radiation exposure. And he had also been vomiting blood before he died.
Oh wow.
And I guess like that kind of helps to support the weaker chemical cloud theory. But that's only one of the many inconsistencies in the autopsies.
Here, maybe it's this right here. In the area of the scratches, there's one laceration in the lower third of the right leg. There's a graze wound of 4 by 2 centimeters in size. On the other lateral surface, the lower third of the right forearm. On the palm surface, there are small dark red scratches of parchment density. The back of the right hand is a purpley gray color. In the area of the wrist joints between the phalangeal joint, the soft tissue is a brown purple color, of parchment density covered in dry crust with hemorrhaging and the underlying issues. The left hand is a brown purple color with dark red scratches. The parchment density, sedimentation of skin in the area of the black surface of the second and fourth fingers. In the area of the palm surface, the second and fifth fingers, there's skin. So right, we're detailing all the irregularities. The skin of the scalp on the inner surface is wet, juicy, and a shiny pale red color. The bones of the vault at the base of the skull are whole. The dura mater is bluish, full of blood. Pia mater, opaque and engorged. The cerebral gyrus smoothed out. Flattened brain matter is a jelly-like mass of greenish red color. And it just goes on to explain how these aren't congruent with necessarily congruent with hypothermia.
Definitely not, or even an avalanche, man. Which again, that's like the most popular theory. That's the mainstream kind of debunking is the slab avalanche thing. Just to circle back.
And even if the slab avalanche happened, obviously it didn't kill all 9 of them. Obviously they had a previous camp that they were trying to make it back to. The idea of, if it was a slab avalanche, it would have happened, I would assume, while they were sleeping. So, if they were going to cut their way out of the tent, they would have likely been able, had time to suit up, I would think. There's so many inconsistencies.
Yeah.
And then,
there's
there's
another
dude that seemed to have bit a chunk out of his own hand in the snowbank.
Wicked. I was just going to say there's another like really big silver bullet inconsistency with the avalanche theory. That when they come upon the site to investigate, the tent poles for the tent are still standing vertical. So like you'd have to assume that if that is what went down and they got hit with the slab avalanche, like all that shit should have been destroyed. All the stuff in the tent.
An image of that.
Yeah, and like all the stuff inside the tent is still like arranged neatly, like they had it laid out and orderly. So it's not in a state of disarray from the avalanche.
So this is their tent post avalanche. But as you stated, post avalanche, you would think an avalanche would knock over some fucking skis.
You definitely.
What's the cross post on the further point? Because it looks like that would hold the tent down, right? That's a much smaller piece. Wouldn't it have definitely toppled over?
Well, actually, the smaller
like
piece is more likely to not topple because of the way phases were, but these certainly would have. Sorry, what were you saying, Sammy?
I said I don't even know if that was the cross. That looks like it might have been a grave marker.
Maybe.
No, I think I mean maybe it's a grave marker.
I thought it was a tent spike. So,
yeah, I thought it was a tent spike.
Oh, I didn't think it was a tent spike.
We're talking about such a large volume of. I'm sorry, man. I was just going to say we're talking about such a large volume of snow. Like it would have snapped this shit like twigs, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one thing we haven't discussed yet is the Yeti.
Oh my!
Oh, there he is. Oh wow!
There was a Yeti in the room the whole time.
That's a good picture.
I knew it.
Now, this photo has been
Boring
authenticated, by the
bastard.
way. This photo is absolutely real. I'm not. By the way, I'm not joking. It went through multiple layers of forensic analysis. Problem is, it's probably just this dude.
Yeah,
Probably
I was
this
gonna
dude from a
say,
distance.
it looks like a man in a
Yeah.
ski suit.
Yeah, it's not the Yeti whatsoever. That's one of the fun little theories out there is that they've got this photo of the Yeti. No, they have a photo of a dude in a distance wearing his fucking ski suit. But I always find it fun to be like, hey, well, this photo's been authenticated. Yeah, it's because it's real.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got a photo of Daxnar outside. Yeti was mentioned about this. Yeah, I don't believe the Yeti stuff for a moment. I mean, I am incredibly curious about the orange glowing balls of light because not only were those, what led to sort of the end of the investigation, like you said, but there were multiple witnesses that were not part of this expedition that saw the balls in the sky that night. Now, how that would correlate to what happened here, I got fucking nothing. I don't know if you guys do, but I got nothing.
No. Well, like you said, dude, that's why I find that theory most compelling, because it's corroborated by other unrelated people, like that were in the area. So, like, again, how it's related and like what happened to make, I mean, were they emitting some kind of radiation or some kind of, chemical that caused some of these injuries to these people or made them lose their shit? Like, maybe, but yeah, that's why I think that's the most interesting one for me anyway. I'm sorry if I'm talking too much, guys. I'm just kind of.
Oh no, you're great.
You're
great.
best. You're A-okay.
Okay,
man,
great.
I enjoy listening.
So
excellent.
now in 2021, this is what they had to say. Prosecutors last year concluded the group was killed by an avalanche and found that most had died of hypothermia, but questions remained. Now, again, the prosecutors were saying this as recently as 2021. These included how an avalanche could have happened in such a slight slope, how it could have triggered hours after the tent was pitched, why several of the group had traumatic injuries not normally seen in avalanches. The researchers created an analytical model to look at slab avalanche release under the environmental conditions in which the mountaineers set up their tent. The analysis suggests the hikers could have unknowingly set up camp, hacking a ledge into the frozen ground for shelter only a week later on a week layer of snow. During the night, winds may have deposited more snow in the slab above the tent. And researchers estimate the avalanche could have been triggered between 9.5 and 13.5 hours after the hikers set up camp. The study also shows simulations of injuries, taking into account the hikers who had been lying down when the incident happened, found it fitted with autopsy reports. And mind you, I've seen what they're referring to. There is visual recreations of how this would affect them, but it only shows, at least in my opinion, my very armchair amateur opinion here, it only corroborates one of the 9 individuals' injuries. And there was a multitude of various different injuries here. And the only one that it might corroborate is skull fracture guy.
Yeah, dude, I agree with that assessment. That's where I'm at.
Guam was said the study was the most exciting case I've ever worked on. We felt like detectives. He stressed, however, the researchers do not claim to have solved the mystery. I think it's a great story of courage and friendship in the face of brutal force. Now, it actually goes on to say more than this. So I actually watched the interview with this guy. Should have fucking bookmarked it, but I was just entrenched in research. He is actually questioned on, well, hey, you let's say the slab avalanche theory is true. You've solved the contusions aspect, or the lack thereof, the internal damage aspect. What about all the people leaving without their clothes on? And then the deaths later, the dude bit a chunk of his hand. Like they ask him, what about all these other external things that have no correlation to the avalanche? And he basically went, that part's not my job.
Convenient.
Right. Fuck convenient.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Angry Sparrow says I've got 2 books on the topic, quite the mystery. And that's the thing is,
Nice.
this is one of those cases where, like, as much as I love the government conspiracy and what they're hiding from you and what they're not telling you, something happened here, obviously. I don't know that we can chalk it up to Soviet government did this, but we can chalk it up to Soviet government is absolutely hiding something, or was absolutely hiding something.
It really makes you wonder
Undoubtedly.
what. Like,
For sure.
These were still students, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Most
they
of
were
them, yeah.
they were adult students and whatnot, because these were college students. These
Yeah,
were
yeah.
like scientists. These were probably like lifetime, lifers in college. They're there to study and then they take jobs within the institution. But yes,
These were like very intelligent, focused, driven people too. Like these were not just like, oh, I'm gonna, happen out into the wilderness and we'll see how that goes. And like they've done this many times before. They were all very capable in their own rights. They didn't just like happen to be there with each other either. Like they'd done this a lot. Well, I think one of them was there actually getting their certification. I think you might have mentioned that at the beginning, Leon. You're muted, buddy.
You're muted, honey.
Muted.
whoops, all of them were there for certification. All of this trek would have given all of them their grade 3 certification, which is the highest grade certification you can get for, or at least at the time, for hiking expertise.
Okay.
Like it's so They can talk about reopening the case in 2019. They can talk about how we've got this, that, and the other. I'm sorry, with how secretive the Soviet government was, the fact that all this was classified, the fact that some of the investigators took home diary pages and kept them as part of their private collection, like, that's weird. I don't think that the people, yeah, that's a real thing that happened. I don't think that the investigator or the people that are opening the investigation in the modern day probably even have access to all the information that was done with the initial 1959 investigation.
I'm sure most of that stuff's probably lost to time, man.
Lost to time or intentionally gotten rid of because, Soviets.
Definitely.
Yeah, so
the I am sorry, I didn't know if you were going to signal if you wanted to wrap up or keep going, man. But like the government cover-up part,
I'm more or less out at things because I figured with this being like your guest episode, I want you wanted to give you your time and whatnot. But I mean, I've got little bits here and there, so as long as you've got more, we can keep going. But I'm personally out.
Yeah, I got a little more, man, and this kind of dovetails with the government cover-up part. Why the government was so keen to cover up, and maybe it didn't have anything to do with these orange lights like the lead investigator suggested, but it's what's called the KGB controlled delivery theory. So basically, a controlled delivery is when, I even wrote it down. That's an espionage tactic where a state allows a transfer of materials, like the radioactive clothes in this case, to track the recipient. So basically, what's suggested is all, or at least 3 of the hikers were all KGB agents, and they were going out into the wilderness to meet with a third-party state organization, like the CIA, for instance.
Well,
and
let me stop you right there real quick, because it is confirmed that at least one of them, not necessarily KGB, but did have ties to the Russian government. Now they're saying, the USSR government at the time. Now they're saying this is inconsequential and coincidental. He served in the Soviet military and became part of the Soviet secret police.
That's the older guy, I believe.
Yeah. Yes, correct. Yeah, that was the older guy. And something mysterious about him is he joined the expedition last minute. So
yeah, he wasn't originally supposed to go, I guess.
Yeah, correct. So there was at least one member that did, in fact, have ties to the Soviet government. So that, which is what gives this conspiracy some grain of truth to it, but or not truth, but credence. But sorry, continue. Yeah. I just wanted to let people know.
Oh no, you're good, bro. No, that's good. That's good shit. So basically, the premise: at least 3 hikers, Krivonishenko, Kolevatov, and Zoloratov, were undercover KGB agents, and their mission was to meet a group of foreign tourist spies, likely the CIA, at a remote location to sell them the radioactive clothing samples. And then basically what they would do after that, the idea being once the CIA people have these radioactive clothing samples, then the KGB could track their whereabouts, I guess, like, see where like their base of operations is, that kind of shit. I've never like heard of anything like that. I mean, I guess it makes sense in the realm of statecraft and shit. Supposedly, what led to the incident was that the third party, possibly CIA people, figured out what was going on, and that's what led to the violence. And so, like, in an effort to keep things quiet and to make it seem like something natural happened, there was no foul play, the supposed CIA agents like forced them to strip naked, and that's why some of them die of hypothermia. And a few of them like get injuries afterward where they were like finishing them off basically, and they didn't want to like shoot them and leave bullet holes. Like, I think all that sounds pretty like ridiculous, but that's supposedly one of the reasons why the Soviet Union was so keen to shut down the investigation so early on.
Because we got one over on them, hypothetically.
Supposedly, yeah. I mean, and then you got some rebuttals for that.
The problem with a theory like that is if it was done to such a successful degree, there'd be no trail to back it up. So, like, that's
how I feel, dude.
Nothing to back that up.
Yeah, like that. I mean, there are a lot of people that believe that at a minimum, the hikers, most of them were like KGB agents, and they were like up to some kind of secret mission. And they could have been like, these, even though they're young, like most of them are in their early mid-20s. Like, these people are pretty like high up in the Soviet infrastructure. I know like one of them is like, like the young Communist Party representative or whatever. So like they have some clout, man. Like, these are credentialed. They weren't just like, average people off the street. But even so, like you said, dude, if if the CIA wanted to make it look like there was an accident of some kind, I am positive they would have done that successfully.
Yeah, there have been no question, especially by this point in time. Whether you said it was 59.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking over, Project MK Naomi was already up and running. You know what I mean? It was like the CIA is CIAing at this point. And when you
Right.
look at their ages too, I mean, they could even be low key elements of the Soviet Union. It was like they would already be officers. You know what I mean? Like 23, 24. They're just not like early enlistants. That's like when you're 17, 18 years old. So
Yeah.
there's no reason why they couldn't be student agents or anything else like that. There's plenty of things that could have happened.
Definitely.
So, but with that being said, I guess it's gonna just boil down to in one of two ways. Either the Soviets know, or well, I guess not the Soviets anymore. The Russians know, but they'll never actually let us know. They'll continue drip feeding information. It's like, oh, hey, investigations reopened. Just keep it in the public consciousness. It seem like they're doing something. Or in reality, 9 people died, freak accident, with circumstances that we never will be able to understand. But at the end, the end result is the same. Is that I don't think, barring getting a time machine and going back, that we will ever figure out what happened.
Yeah. Maybe that's part of the appeal, dude, is like, that you're never going to get to the bottom of the thing.
Yeah, but I'd much rather have answers than not. My favorite episodes are the ones that we can either give credence to or full on debunk.
It's Orange Spears. It's aliens. It's always aliens.
That's true. We can always default to that. It's always aliens. But with that, I think it's about time we start wrapping things up. I'll see who's live and who we're going to raid into. And while we do that, we'll do some outros. And Jake is our esteemed guest. Let's start with you. Anything you want to announce to the people?
No, don't got anything coming up. I don't often appear in live streams, but like this was so fucking cool, you guys. I appreciate you so much for letting me do this with you. I love this fucking show. You guys are my favorite internet personalities, and also Leon. I'd be happy to come back and do this again anytime. I love the chat, all my chat bros representing you. This was so great. I appreciate you.
Oh man,
Dude,
it was a lot of fun.
Absolutely happy to do it. I mean, you, like I said, you're arguably just the straight up biggest support of the show, and this was a great episode, especially following last week's Russian stuff. So we had 2 weeks of Russia in a row, and I think we're potentially doing Alaska next week, which you could see Russia from Alaska. So you want to do the quote, Sammy? I saw you want to do the quote, or not?
What do you?
Oh
no, I'm sorry. I'm looking at all the found death photos.
Gotcha. The moment I said you can see Russia from Alaska, like you're gonna do the Sarah Palin. I can see Russia from my house.
No, from my house.
Cinevere, what about you? What you got coming up? You're taking the night off. So what's going on beyond that?
Yeah, so I will be taking the night off. I'll be moving my stream that I normally hold on Tuesdays to Saturday. So keep an eye out for that. I'll put up just this week. I will be putting up a schedule so that you guys can visually see it and hopefully remember, because I'd love to hang out with you guys on Saturday. But other than that, I will be back on Wednesday. I'll be playing 7 hours of Stellar Blade. I'm going to get some of this bitch done. So I'm looking forward to it.
Damn.
Sammy, what about you, my friend?
I actually have a live gig on Friday, so hopefully I'll have some video to share with everybody. And then Cavecast, we're covering Man Bat, and like I said, the news is still on hiatus until I get all this legal shit figured out. Hopefully after MegaCon, which is next week, where I'll be hanging out with you, and I'll be bringing my mobile setup. So although we don't have to do tinfoil haters there, so either way,
our last episode of Tinfoil Haters before MegaCon, we'll be able to do an episode of Tinfoil Haters before MegaCon, and then maybe we get back from MegaCon on Monday, so we'll be able to do a episode the following week. So yeah, MegaCon, Tinfoil Haters won't have any interruptions from MegaCon.
Yep, sweet.
Awesome.
St. Hugo with a 5-banger says, "For fuck's sake, YouTube, don't cry. Full staff of DB drops soon." No idea what that means. Redacted, whatever. I tried to rephrase 100 times by now. I unfortunately, due to all the rephrasings and redactions, I don't know what you were trying to say, but I appreciate Hugo. Yeah, absolute legend. Means the world to me. And
And a friendly reminder, fuck you, Leon.
that too. But as for me, videos and streams every day. I'll be back tomorrow with the Leon's Lunch Hour. I will see you guys at 1 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. We'll be talking politics, pop culture, the whole nine. Videos every day as well. Not sure what tomorrow's video is going to be on, but I can guarantee you guys there will be one. And if you've not seen my death battle reaction to Cell versus Metal Sonic, it is up now. Video's doing pretty well, so go ahead and give it a watch. For the algo, we're going to raid into Cult Classic Cage. I haven't gotten to raid that bitch in a hot minute. I'm going to raid into my girl. I know Hypno's streaming, but I raid Hypno pretty frequently. Let's give Cassie some love. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for the super chats. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for supporting Jake. This whole topic was his idea. It was great. And yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Until next time, it's all here in the Nerdosphere. And this has been Words of Paradise.